So speaking of your job, I believe is sound supervisor.
Hmm.
Now, what is a sound supervisor exactly? And is there a hierarchy of different sound jobs in broadcast? Where do you start? How do you become a sound super? Like, what's the kind of what roles are there in sound?
The sound supervisor is in charge of the sound on that end. So the producer and director will come to the sound supervisor and go, Keith, we are doing this event. We want you to do the sound. That's fine. Some of them might appreciate some difficulties, but a lot of them basically like, that's it, get on and get me the sound. They might say, we particularly want this sort of thing. We quite like, we want to see the audience, or we want a lot of laughs, because don't forget, let's say comedy, how much laughter do you want? Some people want laughs in your face, and some people want laughs gentle. Some of it want live laughs, some of them want laughs later.
Yeah.
All which can be done, but it has to be planned in advance. And then the other point about the sound supervisor responsible for not just putting the sound onto tape, although it isn't tape anymore, of course, or transmitting it, because it could be live, or it could be for later release, could be for archive, which is quite another interesting point. But they're also responsible for all the communications between the broadcast team. So there are, say, 20 cameramen, a lighting department who are also liaising with the live lighting. There are floor managers, assistant floor managers, callers, sound teams. And one thing to really upset a broadcast director is you can put out almost any sound on the speakers and they'd be quite happy. But if you hit a button and they can't talk to a cameraman or the lighting director or the floor manager, hell pays. Sound supervisor is responsible for all that as well, which is
And in
quite a
fact,
major.
in a studio situation, I'm imagining that in a TV studio, that a lot of that is fairly set up.
It is, yeah.
But then when you go into the O2 or a sports event, stadium or something,
None of that is set up.
right?
None at all. And so that is the responsibility of the sound supervisor. He's totally responsible for communications. Now, a good sound supervisor will get in an expert and dump that. Sorry, we'll dump that sideways a lot. But they are broadcast sound people, guarantees we call them, who will go, okay, you're looking after the comms. So there's a lot of RF. Again, music's quite a good example. No, play's a good example, where there are a lot of radio mics as part of the performance, or radio guitars. Well, we're using radio microphones of any sort on our presenters, and the 6 or 7 different talkback channels going around. Oh, and the radio cameras and things. So all of which, and they can all interfere. And there's, when TV turns up, as I think I said earlier, JFMG and Ofcom start looking really carefully at frequencies.
Right.
So we have to be aware of that.
So RF is becoming quite a big and important job in live. I mean, it always has been, but it's more so. But with the more complex it's becoming and the narrower the bandwidth, so that's becoming a standalone job in itself in the live world. Would that be a standalone job in broadcast, or just a job that somebody does for the day?
Both, correct. It is on the bigger events. I will employ a standalone job for somebody to look after RF. They will be a broadcast sound man, though. It's not.
Yes.
It's a broadcast sound job. We wouldn't let anybody else near it. It is a broadcast sound job. On a smaller event, no, it will be one of the sound crew.
And then what does that sound crew consist of? So you've got the sound supervisor.
Yes, sound supervisor. In an event which isn't in a studio, but an event where an OB, a truck, turns up, which has cameras, sound, lighting, everything in it, there will be a sound supervisor, a deputy sound supervisor, or who's also called a guarantee, who's also called Gram Op, and things. And it depends. So sitting in front of the desk, in general, will be the sound supervisor, mixing, controlling the sound, planning it, saying what he wants. He will have an assistant next to him. And
Is
if there's a
different to the
lot of...
deputy?
No, it's the same thing.
Okay.
But deputy sound supervisor goes back. This is all historical to the BBC. They used to be called tape and gram ops, which is what they were. That got changed, and they thought assistant sound supervisor would be very good until somebody pointed out that the letters for that are ASS, which may be very relevant, but not good to write on bits of paper. So they became deputy sound supervisors. And in theory, they are, because you're supposed to, the supervisor keeled over, they would jump in.
Yeah.
And mix it, apparently. Well, that's the thing. So they and guarantee, if you turn up and you're doing a job as a sound supervisor in a truck, an OB truck, they are big beasts now. I don't mean physically big, although they are, but very, very complicated beasts. So, and as freelancers, we'll turn up and go, yeah, okay, what's that? Oh, today it's a Larvo, or a Studer, or a Neve, or a Cowick, or an Artemis, or anyone loaded desk. Oh, and what communication systems do you have? Well, you've got Telex, you've got Riedel, you've got, there are dozens and dozens. And how does this truck work? Is it IP? Is it Dante? Is it whatever? They're all different. And you can't learn every truck. There may be 70 in the country, all different.
Right.
I don't know. So you get somebody with the truck who's employed by that company, who's supposed to know it, who knows it backwards, the sound. And he's called a guarantee. Now, the point was he will come through the broadcast chain and will know, and probably know most of us, what we all like and what's expected. But he's basically, it's like, okay, I want to get EVS 7, track 7 on the desk. Where's EVS 7, track 7? Oh, that comes up on router 23.1 or whatever. That's the point.
So in some ways, it's similar to what we'd call in live the babysitter, someone who comes with the system and then is on hand to help the mix engineer do what they need to do.
Yes, and he will take an active part, because if you go, okay, I want the music played in there, and there, he will be doing that for me as well. And it's like, go out and rig that. He has to be, there are women as well, will have to be a broadcast trained sound person.
Sure. And
so
then,
anyway, he's number 2 on the list.
Yeah.
And then there will be a crew. And I'm ignoring studios here a bit, but a crew will be depending on how many sound men you need. Somebody's got to run out the cables, interface with the live sound system, put microphones on people, all that. That will be 2 or 3, depending on how big the job is. If we say a football game, there will be a supervisor and a guarantee, if it's a truck, and then you've got to rig the, depends, 16 effects mics around the pitch for the ball hits, not for the crowd. That's just the ball hits, all the way around the pitch, quite long. And then there's crowd effects mics. Think of a number, how many you want to put up, or more to the point, how easy it is to put them up. Oh, and then it's like, oh, we want to do an interview with the manager in the tunnel. Oh, and the side of the pitch. Oh, and over in that corner. Oh, there's a famous ex-footballer there. All has to be rigged, tested, and working. So that's soundmen's job.
Yeah.
If we're lucky, we have somebody called riggers who, on a golf course, for instance, where there's a lot of long distances, riggers will lay out, in the old days, the multi-core, could be the fibre, out. So we won't have to run the cables from the truck outside the football ground into the ground. Riggers lay camera cables, power cables, and things into the ground. But all the local ends and rigging is done by the sound crew, of which there could be 3 or 4 or 5, depending. If you're miking people up and there's a lot of quick changing, so somebody comes on to present an award, and then they're off, somebody else comes on, and there may be 30 different awardee people. We don't have 30 radio mics for them because it's too difficult for everybody, including the front of house people, who we have to feed things to as well and split up. So music, video, replays and things are not being played from the front of house desk. They're being played from the truck. So we have to get that to them. So if there's a lot of quick changing and earpiece replacing, then we might have more. They all work for the sound supervisor. He's in charge of all of them.
All of that, yeah. So that was something interesting that you just mentioned there. So all your sound sources are coming to the truck first and then being fed to other places like front of house? Or is it just split like you would split a monitor and a front of house sound?
So what do you mean by sound sources?
So all your microphones and your, you're saying that it's, you've got to change all the interview mics.
Right.
I think I understood what you said, but I might be wrong, that all of those sound sources, like those mics, are coming to you, the broadcast truck first, and then you're feeding that to
that
live people.
That depends. It was the point I was saying was videotape. I said VT, EVS. Replays of interviews and music, play on music, may be not from a live band, but it may be from a tape machine, effectively.
Of course.
A
Okay, sorry.
All that has to come through. And Alan Dedicoat, for instance, in the lottery, well, tonight's numbers are, that's probably coming from me because we have control of him, and including the constant, like, shut up, Alan, play, speak now, Alan, irrespective. And sometimes we'll want him not going to the PA, to the front of house. So it would be easy to split it to the front of house, but that means they now have to listen, as we do in broadcast, constantly. You have your program, you have a director talk back there, and you have your sound people and technical talk back there, and you have to listen to them all the time. And you can't miss it. So if the director says, okay, Alan, I just want you to talk over this bit, we don't want it on the floor. Right. Now, front of house mixer's not listening. In broadcast, we listen to three things all the time and have done it for years. So you go, right. Now, I could uncut the feed to him, PA, that's fine. But if front of house was getting his mic live, they'd had to listen to that and go, bloody hell, I better fade him out here. It's easier and safer for me to have control of what goes to the front of house in that case. So right. I would cut the PA. Personally, I'll have two feeds, so I don't have to. Certainly in the old days, I could press a button. Now, of course, it depends on what layer I've got on the front of the desk, whether I've got that PA set on an assignable button. I would personally have it on two faders, two PA and not PA.
Okay.
And I might EQ it differently, because don't forget the EQ on that is going to be my EQ for TV sound,
yes,
which is very different.
Yes, indeed.
And that can also present problems, not just an EQ, but delays. If things are going up on screen for the front of house, they will maybe delay that to match the screens. I don't want that delay, or I might be delaying it because it's going into a 5.1 embedder, which have inherent delays, via a vision mixer, which has delays in it. So my delays, and that does cause problems, and they're different delays. So you can end up with multiple sends from this. So and it does mean, if the mics are split, in music it's easy. Somebody presenting and announcing a show, that would certainly be split. But then front of house mixer has to do a TV job and listen constantly.
Yeah.
So, Ant and Deck are by the side of stage going, well, that's really good. Look, they're playing well here, aren't they? To us on camera, they've got a shot here and Ant's going, it's really good and exciting. Well, if they have Ant's mic, they've got to remember to fade him out at that point. They've also got to remember to fade him up when it comes on. That's what we do in broadcasting, what we've been trained to do, and we listen. I think that's really difficult for front house man to do, man or woman. So you constantly listen. And it goes back to things like drama, situation comedy in studios which don't have live sound as such. Everybody listens to the director because you're not interested in, or director and vision mix, you're not interested really in what the actor's saying. What you're interested in is what size of shot it is. If it's a shot like this, that's fine. You've got to have the microphone in close. You can be there to make sound. If it's a shot of the room with somebody standing in the back, you've got to get your boom microphone out of shot and know it. So you listen constantly. And the vision mixer will say, the PA or AP will say, on camera 2, coming to 3 now, and they cut on the word. So you're reading, you're listening to when they're cutting, because you've got to get out of that shot then. So in TV, we've grown up listening. Talkback is the most important thing, as I said earlier.
Yeah.
Everybody's listening to that, because the cameraman will go, he needs to hear it as well, because it's like, well, I'm on shot, they're coming to, they've cut away from me, now I can move over here. And if they're not listening, everybody listens to talkback all the time. I know in a live sound you have the shout system, and which I also want to feed off, but that's sort of not instant. These are listening every 5 seconds, like cut, and we've got to know when that's cutting. Maybe to change microphones as a mixer. So that's the point. So I will liaise. I will personally go up to the front of house mixer, go, okay, how do you want to run this? This is what they're likely to do. And you go, can you give me a feed with that on and without that? And sometimes I'll have 2 feeds of that, so I can EQ them differently, delay them differently, help the front of house.
Right.
Which all was very difficult up until a few years ago, because of the facilities and size of desk required. With the modern digital desk, it is a lot easier. Okay. It's more possible.
Yeah. And then thinking about something like football or rugby, where you've got 16 effects mics. Are you riding faders on those mics all the time?
All the time. So 16 effects mic, they're the ones around the pitch. So you have, generally in Premier League coverage now, there will be a gun mic, a rifle mic at the halfway line, both sides. The 18-yard, the penalty box line, both sides, both halves, so that's 3. Corner flag, that's 5 per side, 5 the other side, that's 10. 1 behind the goal each, so that's 12. Some people put them between the goal and the corner flag as well. You can't leave all them, plus you've got crowd mics, plus commentators. You have to follow them. You can't leave all those mics open at the same time, because then you dilute the effects, and you want that kick, that punch in the ball. So you're chasing it, which means you have to chase it and work out where it is, because they cut to a close-up of somebody. Where's that? You've got to watch the game. It's a bit like golf. Golf has generally 3 microphones per hole, generally. There's some exceptions there. So 3 18s are 54.
Wow.
So you've got 54 mics there, and the director cuts to some guy in a red jumper. Well, on a green background. Yeah. Okay, so that's Jack Nicklaus. What hole's he on? And you've got 54 microphones. You pull up the wrong one, doesn't match, and you don't hear it. Things.
Yeah.
So TV.
So are you then watching
TV sound? You watch all the time.
So would you then watching the screen that the audience will be seeing and follow it that way, or do you? How do you do the following?
Okay, you do watch the screen, the audience watch. Plus, of course, I have. At the moment, I'm doing women's tennis, and we have 20 screens. It's only a little control. 20 screens.
Wow.
No, 24 screens, and that's a small control room. So I can see all sorts of things. What it is you're looking at, of course, that's the important thing. You can't know. If we could have a feed of every single camera. So there's 15 or 16 cameras on a football pitch. But if it's zoomed in close, you don't know where they are. Camera 3 and camera 5 you have up, because they're the wide shots from on high. And then you can rough idea. Bloody, it looks like he's over on the left hand by the far touch line. You go through. And then they'll cut. At least you've got a rough. But you do have to watch, and that's true of TV all the time. So it's listening and watching all the time.
Yeah.
A band number, exactly the same, doing music. And then I think I brought it up recently. Generally, these are all generalizations. TV sound people match the picture. So the sound mix is relevant to the picture, not what's going on stage, but the picture. So that's why in music, most TV mixes are vocal heavy, because most shots on a band number are of the vocalists.
Yeah.
They are. So most TV mixes, including mine, are vocal heavy because that's what we want to see. That also means, of course, if the director's cutting up a shot of a grand piano, they love grand pianos, they look pretty.
Mm.
You'll probably push that a little higher. If there's somebody playing some dodgy piece of percussion that looks nice, you'll try and find that and push that, even though it may not be
But some of
terribly
these are
relevant.
very, very instantaneous. They're like a few seconds here and there. And
Yeah.
so you need to be following that.
Hands on. That's what a lot of people from live don't say, because once it's set up, it's sitting there with little adjustments. Even on the tennis, which I'm doing at the moment, I have a feed from China at the moment, a stereo feed. Well, I have 6 feeds coming, but basically what I use is stereo effects, just the effects, crowd, ball hits, umpire, all that sort of thing. And then I have 2 commentators and some music to play in when they do replays and things. And constantly, so if I'm there for 8 hours, my 3 fingers on this hand, because I mix it that way, are the 2 commentators and the effects mic. So I'm wagging the effects mic up with that and that. And you watch and listen the whole time. And that's simple, but you have to. You can't set anything up, really.
I mean, so if your working day, let's say you're doing the tennis, and tennis doesn't really take breaks, it just goes on for hours because you go from one court to the next. So if you have a working day of something like 8 hours,
Yep.
is that not absolutely exhausting?
Yep. And you don't get any breaks.
How do you get?
You don't get breaks. You have runners who bring you food and tea and coffee. Runners just in the gallery come out to you saying what you want to eat and drink. And when you need to go to the loo, you go. In tennis, you know there's going to be a sit down every 2 ends.
Yeah.
And then you quickly run to the loo, have a piss and run back.
Yeah.
And you do that for 8 hours.
Wow. And are shifts, I mean, do you have quite strict working hours?
No. So, and if it goes long or it's delayed an hour, so, in theory, you've got ideas when you're supposed to finish.
Yeah.
But you finish when you finish.
Okay.
For which you may charge them, but
you
can't leave at the end of your hours.